Drawing this slice of pizza is way easier than you think, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it, no matter your skill level. Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and design. So if you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the weekly videos and so that you can join our wonderful creative community. And with that said, grab your drawing tools and let's get started. In this video, I'm going to be using an app called Procreate on the iPad, but you can follow along with pretty much any digital art software. As long as you have layers, you'll be good to go. And for this video, honestly, you can probably use most of the tips for just regular pencil and paper as well. So whatever you have, just grab your drawing tools, and we're going to start by creating a new canvas if you're drawing with digital art. And the dimensions are really up to you. They depend on your own project. These are the ones that I'm using. It is literally just the size of the iPad because this is just a demo. And if you're not exactly sure how to pick your canvas size, I have a video that will link in the description below that will teach you exactly that, so feel free to check it out. And we're going to start by setting the background color. I'm going with this really bright blue, but you can go with whatever you want. However, this bright blue is going to help us kind of pick our color palette later, so I recommend you might want to pick something similar. And once you have that, go ahead and create a new layer and rename it to Sketch. Now for the sketch, you can use any color of your choice. I like to just sketch with gray, but we won't see the sketch in the final result, so it really doesn't matter that much. And in this video, I'm always going to be suggesting two different types of brushes, although the brushes don't really matter that much in this video. So the first brush is going to be a free brush that comes with Procreate. In this case, for the sketch, you can go with the HB pencil from the sketching panel. And the second brush is always going to be a brush that might help you save some time and just get more professional results. And these are brushes that comes from my Ultimate Illustration bundle, which will be also linked in the description below, along with a special promo code for the YouTube people. That being said, this tutorial, the brushes are really not that important. I'm just using mine because I really like them, but yeah, you can follow along with pretty much anything. And if you have the illustration bundle, go ahead and pick the sketching brush, of course. And since we're drawing on a colored background, go ahead and change the blending mode of your sketch layer to multiply. And we're simply going to start by drawing one horizontal line for the bottom of the pizza. And if you hold your pencil in Procreate, it creates a perfectly straight line. So we're going to use that trick for the top of the pizza. You're just going to draw an angled line, hold your pencil on the screen, and that way you're going to be able to connect it with the horizontal line. You're then simply going to draw a slightly curved line to connect both and kind of close your pizza. And then you're going to draw two ovals on the top points of the pizza that is going to help us sketch the crust, and then you can just round the crust. And you can see here, we're not being precise with the sketch, we just want to have a basic idea of where everything is going to be, so don't spend too much time, and it's okay if you have a bunch of lines everywhere. You can also kind of sketch the thickness of the crust just like this. And depending on the type of pizza you want to have, we could go ahead and kind of curve this a little bit. So in my example, it's a really straight pizza, but here I'm going to show you how to really kind of simply make it look like it's melting. So using the arrow tool here at the top and selecting Warp, you're going to be able to just kind of pick the different little sections of your illustration. So like whenever there's an intersection or a corner, you're going to be able to move that, and you can kind of distort and warp your pizza slice really easily and just give it a fun shape. You're obviously not like forced to do this. If you want your pizza slice to be straight, that is a cool look as well, but if you want it to be kind of melty and bendy, that is a really easy way to do it. So play with this, and once you're happy with the result, you can just tap on the arrow tool at the top to exit this mode. Okay, so now that we have our sketch, we're ready to start mapping out the colors. But before that, I personally like to lower the opacity of my sketch until I can just barely see it. Feel free to do it or not, that is totally up to you. And then create a new layer and put it below the sketch. You're going to rename this new layer to Crust. And earlier I was telling you that if you have a blue background, I'm going to show you like a really nice way to create a color palette that is for sure going to work with that blue background. So if that's the case, go ahead and either color pick your blue or pick it from the history so that it is set as your main color. And then from the harmony menu here at the bottom, you're going to pick the split complementary option. And this is going to give you two other colors that are going to work really well with your background, including a yellow. And if you click on the yellow, you can then go back to classic and actually make it kind of a brownish color. So go ahead and pick that, and this is what we're going to use for crust now. Later I'm going to show you a way to tweak it once we have all our color mapped out to just really get it to a place that you like. But for now, just go ahead and pick that. And in terms of brushes, you can use either the hard brush from the airbrushing panel, making sure that you put the opacity back at 100% if you follow my watercolor tutorials. Otherwise, if you have the illustration bundle, just pick the base round brush. But basically all we want here is just kind of doing a silhouette of our entire pizza shape. So you're just going to outline it really quickly, nothing fancy here, and then we're going to fill in the shape. So once you have your crust map out like this, we're going to create a new layer for the cheese. So this new layer is going to be above the crust, of course, and you're going to rename it to cheese. In terms of color, since we've picked a color that we know matches well with our blue background, just kind of stick with the same one, just make it obviously much more brighter and lighter than the crust. And then you're just going to do the same thing. So you're going to kind of outline where you want your cheese to be. I like the part of the cheese that is near the crust kind of wobbly, then the cheese that is on top of the pizza to be really nice and smooth. And then the cheese that is kind of dripping from the front of the pizza or the side of the pizza, you want it to be kind of, yeah, dripping, but also like you want to show that cheese spool basically, especially at the exact point on the front. You want to make sure that you have a really nice drip there, and then you can again just fill in your shape. And we're going to do the same thing with the sauce. The sauce is obviously going to be between the crust and the cheese, so you can just create a new layer right there and rename it to sauce. And for the color, we're going to go back to our favorite tool, the Harmony tool here at the bottom. And with the yellow selected, you're going to select this time analogous, and then you're going to pick kind of this salmon-y color, and going back to the classic, you're going to make it a nice red. So you can play with the saturation and the brightness as much as you want. As long as you don't shift the hue, it is going to be a color that works really well with the rest of your palette. And you probably guessed it, you're just going to sketch your sauce. So I like to have some sauce that kind of pokes out on the crust behind the cheese, so something just a little bit like this. And I also like to have some sauce dripping on the side of the pizza, of course, just to make it look so much more appetizing and way less dry. So have fun here. There's no rule on how you need to draw anything here. Just kind of experiment, and then once you're done with your outline, just fill in your shape as usual. And at this point, you're free to add any topping of your choice. So to do that, create a new layer above the cheese. Of course, we want the toppings to be sitting above everything, and rename this layer to toppings. So honestly here, like I was saying, you can draw whatever you want. I'm gonna go with the pepperoni and basil just because I like the colors of it. And speaking of which, for the color of the pepperoni, you can keep the same kind of red as you did for your sauce, just making it less saturated and maybe a little bit darker as well. And we're going to draw pepperoni slices that are slightly in an angle, so they're not going to be perfectly round, they're going to be more like ellipse. And in Procreate, if you just draw an ellipse and then hold your pencil on the screen, Procreate is automatically going to create a perfect ellipse. Basically, it's going to smooth it out, so that's really helpful. So you can draw as many as you want, the size and shape, and yeah, how many as you want. And once you're done, you can just, again, fill the outlines in so that you have solid shapes. I'm also going to draw some basil, so for that I'm going to go back to our trusty Harmony tool here, and I'm going to select the Tetratic right here, which is going to give me a green option. So I'm just going to pick that green, go back to classic, and make it a little bit brighter and just more fun, because the pepperoni color that we started with was kind of, it's perfect for pepperoni, but it is a little bit less saturated, and I just want to have, you know, fun basil. And then I'm just going to sketch, you know, a few basil leaves kind of all over the place. Nothing complicated here. You just kind of want to fill your pizza so that it is interesting but not crowded either, otherwise we're going to lose the smiley face at the end, and the smiley face is just so cute, we don't want to lose it. And once you're done with all your toppings, we can go back and kind of tweak the colors, which is the reason why we draw everything on separate layers, is so we can easily, you know, adjust the colors later. So I'm going to select my crust layer personally, go in the adjustment panel here at the top, select hue, saturation, and brightness, and then I'm going to play with the hue a little bit, as well as pretty much everything. Basically, I'm going to play with the hue, the brightness, and the saturation until I get a crust that I like. So it is one thing to build a color palette that works well based on, the math of the color wheel, but you also want to have something that you personally like. So always feel free to go back and edit the colors that we created initially. Okay, so it's time to make this look a little bit more interesting because right now it's quite flat. So to do that, we're going to create a new layer above everything on which we're going to draw outlines and details. So we're going to rename it to details, if I can do it. There we go. And on this detail layer, we have two options. We can either draw it all black or we can recolor it. But no matter the option that we want to do, we're going to start in all black and then I'm going to show you a technique to recolor it later. So I don't know why I was saying that. Just go ahead and pick basically either charcoal, gray, or black as your color. And you can use the 6B pencil in the sketching panel if you want. If you want a more solid and not like textured outline, you can pick the technical pen in the inking panel, or you can pick the outline brush if you have my illustration bundle, of course. And all we're going to do here is we're going to outline everything. So there's really no secret here. Just take the time to, outline everything, and you can also add some little details. Like you can see here, I'm kind of adding little middle lines in the basil. And just a little trick here for the pepperoni, you can go ahead and draw a bunch of ovals, hold your pencil so that it creates a perfect oval. And since we're drawing on a separate layer, you can use the arrow tool on a selection that you create around your outline to kind of distort and just reposition your outline properly. So that can be helpful if you want to have perfect outlines. I personally don't really care, so I'm just gonna go ahead and draw a bunch of ovals around my pepperoni, hold my pencil so that Procreate kind of fixes it, and then move on. So we're really just going to be doing that for everything, and you can also add like a little thickness on the pepperoni if you want. You can add any kind of detail at this stage as you desire. But yeah, there's really no secret. You just want to go ahead and draw little outlines for everything. And it is time for the secret password. So if you've watched this far, please go ahead and leave a comment below with your favorite pizza topping. I think mine, well, it kind of depends on the type of pizza. If it's a fancier pizza, I would say my favorite topping would be, just fresh mozzarella and basil. But if it's a greasier fast food kind of pizza, I'm kind of like, might as well add bacon on there. So yeah, and secret password, I know it might sound strange if you're new on the channel, but we've been doing this for a few months now. It is really, really cool. It gives me a lot of insight into how to edit and pace my videos better, which helps me create better tutorials for you guys. But I think the coolest part about it is that it allows me and you guys also to see the creative community that we're building here on this channel, because you guys know me, but I don't know you. So whenever you leave a comment, I get to see your name, sometimes even your face, and it's just really cool to see the community that we have here on Genevieve's Design Studio's YouTube channel. Anyway, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But yeah, just go ahead and comment with your favorite pizza topping, and then we're gonna keep finishing our outlines. At this point, you should be pretty much almost done. And if you're not, feel free to pause the video and take all the time you need. You can also kind of, like I was saying, add some extra details. Like I'm personally adding, as you can see here, kind of the thickness of the crust. So just kind of a reverse S-curve, I guess. And you're going to also, very important, add the smiley face, because here we're drawing a hat pizza that I like to call. No, obviously I say it's very important, but if you want to just have a slice of pizza that doesn't have a face on it, you're totally free to do so. But if you do want to have a slice of pizza that has a smiley face on it, I highly encourage you to do so. And to do it, you just draw 2 little round eyes and a tiny little smiling mouth, pretty much in the center of your pizza slice. And you can also add, little cheeks. So for that, I just color picked, as you can see here, the color of the sauce, then make it a little bit lighter so that it's more of a pink. And then I'm just kind of really quickly sketching some little cheeks. I don't want my cheeks to be fully round and perfect. I want them to have more of a sketching feel to them. So something like that. And you can see I totally messed up the positioning of the left one. So I'm just using the selection tool and the arrow tool to put it back where I want, which is, again, the beauty of drawing everything on separate layer. You can move stuff around when you make a mistake. And I also forgot to draw the little thickness of the cheese, I guess. So I'm just gonna add it right here. Nothing crazy, again, just kind of a few lines to show that the pizza is thick and not just completely flat. And once we're done with that, we're going to move on to making everything come together so that our pizza actually looks good. So I'm going to show you a really quick tip to recolor your outlines if you don't want them to be black, like I was telling you. You can just simply swipe your layer with 2 fingers towards the right, which is going to activate Alpha Lock. You can also manually activate it by tapping on the layer and selecting it in the menu. And so now everything we draw on this details layer is going to stay within the outline shape, which means we can go and color pick our cheese yellow, make it quite darker, and pick a very simple brush like the base round brush, or going back to the hard brush from the airbrushing panel. Basically, you want a brush that doesn't have any texture to it and is fairly, simple, because you're going to be able to go over all your lines and just changing the color very simply. As you can see here, I'm just being very loose and kind of coloring over my cheese outlines to make them a darker version of the cheese as opposed to having them being black. So yeah, that is activating Alpha Lock. That is a very simple way of just kind of recoloring your outlines. If you want to have black outlines, that is totally fine, but I personally like the feel or the vibe of outlines that are just there, but not too intensely there. So not purely black, just a darker version of the color that is being outlined, basically. So we're going to be doing the same thing with the sauce as well. So just color picking the red and then making it darker so that we can kind of change the color of our sauce outline. And again, this is exactly the same thing we're going to do for all of our outlines. So just color picking the base color, making it darker, and then changing the color. And this shouldn't take too long, but I'm going to stop talking to let you focus on doing it on your own, and I'm going to speed up the video a little bit. But feel free to pause the video, take all the time you need to just go over all your little outlines and recolor them using this very simple technique. And once you're done, we're going to come back and add a lot of details, both on the background and on the pizza itself, to really make it come to life and make it pop. So once you're happy with your outlines, we're going to create this little drop shadow behind our pizza, and there's a really quick way to do that. So we're just going to select all of our layers by swapping them towards the right, and then we're going to click group, which is going to create a group that we're going to be able to collapse and rename to pizza. Once that is done, you're going to swipe your pizza group towards the left with 1 finger and click on duplicate, which is going to create a copy. You can then flatten the copy, and by holding 2 fingers on that layer, you're going to select every pixel that is on the layer. So basically, the pizza is going to be automatically selected. You're then going to set your color to gray, and without quitting the selection, just tap on the new layer that we've created here and click fill. It is going to fill in your selection with one uniform color, in this case, gray. You're going to change the blending mode to linear burn and lower the opacity around 30% or something like that. And we're going to drag this newly created shadow layer below the pizza group, and with the arrow tool you're going to be able to slightly move it so that it actually creates a drop shadow. We're also going to add a little bit more details in the background, so we're going to draw some little rays that kind of go from behind the pizza. To do that, create a new layer, put it below the pizza and shadow layer, which in my case, I just forgot to rename it. It is still crust, but you can rename yours to shadows. And this new layer we've just created, we're going to rename it to background. Now we're going to pick a pure white, but you can pick whichever color you want, honestly. And in the wrench icon menu here at the top, in the canvas section, you're going to activate drawing guide, and then you're going to click on edit drawing guide. Now we're going to pick the symmetry option here on the far right, and we're going to select the option here at the bottom, and you're going to pick radial and assisted drawing. Make sure that is all that is selected. The other options here at the bottom, opacity and thickness, are just for the way the guides are displayed. It doesn't matter, it doesn't affect the final result, so make sure you have radial and drawing assist. And when you go back to your layer panel, you should see assisted below the background layer. If you don't see it, just tap on it and activate it manually in the panel. For the brush, we're going to pick from the inking panel the technical pen, or pretty much any brush that is fairly precise and that you know you like. And we're going to draw a straight line starting from the center and just following one of the guides that we have. So something like this. And then starting from the center, you're going to create another straight line, and by holding your pencil on the screen, not lifting it, you're going to be able to move that line until you get, you know, segments that are pretty much the same size. And once that is done, you can go ahead and hide your pizza and your shadow layer, mine is still named crust, and deactivate drawing assist on the background, and going back in your wrench icon menu, deactivate the drawing guides as well. And then you're simply going to be able to drop your color to fill in 1 out of 2 rays, basically. So something like this. Easy, right? And once you're done, you can reactivate your background, your shadow layer, sorry, and your pizza group. And I'm just gonna hide this little example here so I can have a better idea of what I'm doing. And you can also just reposition your pizza and shadow layer by selecting them, of course, in the layer panel and using the arrow tool, just putting them where you want them to be. And the last thing we're going to do, which is going to make probably the biggest difference, is create a new layer above the toppings but below the details and outlines. This layer we're going to rename to lights, and we're going to set the blending mode to add. And add is a very powerful blending mode that looks like light, but you want to make sure the opacity is fairly low, so around 20%. In terms of color, I'm going with a super bright yellowish orange, and for the brush you can use in the sketching panel either the 6B pencil or the basic texture from my illustration bundle. Pretty much any brush that has some grit to it is going to look good here, because all we want to do is basically kind of outline, I guess, the left side of every element. So this is really just going to add more dimension to illustration, more life, and make it pop. It's really not complicated. I mean, if you are able to do your outlines, you're definitely able to do this as well, because yeah, you're just going over one side this time. So it's pretty much the same thing as the outlines, but you're just focusing on the left side, and later you're gonna see we're gonna do the same thing but on the top of all the elements. And just like earlier, I'm going to speed up the video a little bit and stop talking to let you focus. So feel free to either pause the video or just keep watching while this is going a little bit faster, and we're gonna come back together and add the final touches to really make our pizza look so good. Okay, so once you have all of your light outlines, basically the last little thing you might want to do is add some tiny little blobs, I guess, in groups of 1, 2, or 3. 1 is not a group, but you get the idea. Over your cheese to kind of make it look like there's texture on the cheese and it's not just purely flat. And you can also add little dots and blobs on the rest of the pizza, so like on the pepperoni if you have some pepperoni, maybe even on the crust, definitely on the sauce to make it look like it's glistening and wet. So yeah, just adding little dots like this, I know it probably sounds crazy, but it makes a really big difference in the final result. And if you enjoyed drawing this happy pizza, I highly recommend you check out this video in which I'm going to teach you how to draw a slice of cake with an animated flame. But just before you leave, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel, and then click on the link right here, and I'll meet you there.